Hello, welcome to Power BI Playdate. In this course, we are going to learn how to use Power BI for doing data analytics, reporting, and gathering and presenting powerful insights. Power BI is one of the most popular and rapidly growing software for reporting and storytelling in the world of data that we all now live in. So in this course, I will be teaching all about how to collect your data, how to analyze it, how to visualize it, how to share your insights with the world. In the very first lesson, we are going to have a play with Power BI by looking at some sample human resources data, just dummy data for 100 employees, and kind of get a feel for Power BI by creating something that is truly powerful, extraordinary, and also not so time taking. Over to Power BI. So in our very first report in Power BI, what we will do is, as I said, we will build a sample report with human resources data. But before we do that, I think it's important to understand what is Power BI. I believe you've already downloaded and installed Power BI, and you may have already had a play with the software. But it's good time for us to get a formal introduction into Power BI. When we think of Power BI, people naturally assume it as a visual software. Like, for example, we could create some kind of a report like this. This is the image that people have in mind when they think of Power BI. But Power BI is not just a fancy visualization software. In order to be able to get to this level, you need to have some underlying materials. So that's what Power BI offers. It offers the entire journey. So the Power BI journey, which is a collection of software tools that are all part of Power BI, is what you need to know. So the very first step whenever we want to tell a story from data is we must begin the journey at the data level. So Power BI offers tools for dealing with the data related problems, how to query the data, how to combine data sets that are in different places, how to transform the data. For example, you may receive somebody's date of join in the data set, but you want to calculate how long they have been with the organization. So that's kind of a transformation where you have date of join and you have the current date, and you want to calculate the tenure or age of the employee. Likewise, Power BI allows us to add and remove stuff from the data, get rid of any columns that you don't need, or add things that you may require. Likewise, updating the data when there is change from the source system. So once that is done, then once we have the data in the nice and clean shape and size that you need for analysis, you want to analyze it. So Power BI again offers software tools for that. Through this analysis layer, you can link tables, you can set up relationships and behaviors between tables, you can calculate things, you can set up filters, you can do all sorts of data sciencey stuff as well. Once that is done, then we want to visualize this, right? We have done some analysis, we want to now present the results. This is where again Power BI offers tools to make charts and tables, allow interaction. So if you select something from one place, the other things will respond to those selections. Allow drillings, like you want to go down to the next level of detail, or you want to see the detail in a different manner. Have animations so that you can see changes over time or period of things, and also get some explanations for things that are going on and you have no idea what is making that change. Once all of this is done, if you are just making all of this and keeping in your computer, there is no point. You must share so that other users can actually understand what's going on and make some business decisions. So Power BI also offers a platform or tools for us to share the information that you have analyzed through a web page or an app based distribution, along with ability to get additional insights using cloud infrastructure, implement artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms on top of all your analysis, or even have integration so that whatever you are creating can be part of a corporate web page or an internet or something like that. Now, this is the journey that we follow, whether you're doing data analysis in Power BI or pretty much any software, including Excel. We tend to go through these steps in that order. We start with data, we analyze, we visualize, and then we share. Because Power BI is a comprehensive software that gives you this full spectrum, they have special names for each of the layer. The first layer is called as Power Query, using which you can query the data, you can do the transformations. The second layer is called Power Pivot, through which we can analyze the data. The third layer is typically what you see on the screen. So this is what people refer to as Power BI, but Power BI itself is like a collection of all of these things. But we don't really see these underground things. We only see the visualization. So this is what we normally associate Power BI with. And then the sharing thing can be done with the online platform of Power BI. So Power BI Online can be thought of as the sharing thing. So this is your typical journey in the Power BI. Now that we have a comprehensive overview of what Power BI is, let's get into Power BI. Let's load up some data. Let's build some visualizations. We will predominantly work in this space for now, but as we feel more comfortable in the software, we will go back into the earlier layers and understand the power of those things and then come back. All good? Let's go into Power BI. So here is how Power BI looks when you open it up. You might actually see a splash or a welcome screen at the start. You can close that, or you can use that to do the things as well. Power BI, because it is built for not only creating things but also sharing, there is an optional element of logging in. I have logged into my Power BI account. It's not necessary to log into Power BI to be able to use it, but if you log in, then you would be able to share whatever you create with the online workspace, where your colleagues or clients can access what you're creating. Another little bit of information that I think is relevant for us to learn upfront is Power BI is not like your traditional software. For example, if you take something like Windows or Excel, chances are they are not updated every month. So I mean, Windows might get some updates every now and then, but in general the look and feel of the software remains more or less same. With Power BI, because Microsoft, which is the company that owns Power BI, they release new versions every month. So chances are by the time you watch this video, I'm recording this on 15th of October 2019. So by the time you watch this, it could be October 2019, it could be December or February 2020 or some other time in future. The look of the software might change slightly. This is more relevant if you are using a very old version of Power BI, because in older versions of Power BI, this entire outer skin except the canvas in the middle is used to be in black color, but now they have changed it to this dull gray color, so that it offers more contrast and easier on the eyes. Okay, so that's that. We will get into the first bit, which is the journey of Power BI is starting with data. So the very first thing that you probably want to do within Power BI is get data. I'll show you how that works, but before that we will go into our data sets and load up the employee data set in Excel so that we can take a look at what we have here. So we have our employee data here. It's a fictional company called something.com, and it's a web e-commerce company, and they have 100 employees. So this is their HR data set that we are dealing with. So we got employee names, gender, which department they work in, what's the employee's age, which date they have joined the organization, how much salary we are paying them, what is the rating of the employee on a scale of 1 to 6 in the recent performance or performance review round, and then the employee's profile picture on the web, and who is the manager for that employee. I think we have a few managers, and so that data is there. All good. So we will now load up this data into Power BI. We'll go here, we'll click on get data. Now, when you click on get data, it will offer you some of the common sources, but Power BI has an extensive collection of sources that you can connect to. For example, if you go to more, you can see that there is like a heaps of connections available, including some very exotic ones. For example, you could go into SurveyMonkey, collect your survey data, or you could go and bring in a Python or R language scripts into Power BI, or connect to CRM solutions and payment gateways and whatnot. We will go with Excel because this is the place where our data is, and then we'll connect. Power BI asks where is your data, so we will going to point to that, and then this will establish a connection. So in this case, what we are doing is we are connecting to a file that is located on my computer. So you would need to do the same with the employee data file that you have downloaded. And then usually whenever you connect to a source of data, Power BI will show you a navigator screen asking you what do you want out of this file, because the file has two things. One is a spreadsheet, that's the icon for spreadsheet, and another is a table that is in Excel. So these are one and the same from a layman's point of view, but essentially table 1 is what we want. We will connect to this, and then if you want, you can refresh the preview, especially if you have previously connected to the file. Then Power BI may not even fetch the current data. It might just say, oh, I got this in June 2019 or whatever, so I'm going to show that. So once this is there, then we can just say load. What this would do is, if you go back to that picture of journey of Power BI, we have the data and then we have an arrow and then we are going to analyze. So load is essentially the name for that kind of an arrow. Once you finish working on your data, you're loading it to the next stage. So that's what we are doing. We look at this data. I'm pretty much happy with what we have there. So we will just load this. As you load this, you will get a table called table 1. And then all the fields within that table are listed here in the fields area. So now that we have some information, let's take a quick look at Power BI itself. What is the screen telling us? So the layout of the screen is fairly straightforward. You got your ribbon on the top, which has different types of ribbons: home, view, modeling, and help. And some other ribbons may appear depending on what you're doing at that specific time. And the view itself is, this is the white canvas area. It is set to report view. That's the view that we are currently on. You can also switch to data view or model view. Data view will enable you to look at the actual data that we are working on. If you have one table, it will default to that. If you have multiple tables, then you can select that table and then see the preview of this data. And the model view will kind of show a box view for each table. Each table in the data will have one box, and if there are connections between the table, there'll be lines connecting. Right now we don't have any tables other than the table 1, so there is really nothing going on there. So the typical behavior, especially when you are developing things in Power BI, is you stay on the visual or report view, you build things, and when you need to do some extra data related stuff, you will go to the data view to look at it. Okay, so that's the majority of screen area. You got your ribbon, and then you got the view selection thingy, and then the view itself. Okay, these black colored lines that you're seeing, the report, whatever you create, shall fit into that much space, the white space with that dotted line here. Okay, so depending on how big your Power BI window is, that may change. The idea here is a typical report within Power BI world is always a widescreen format. So that means it will be 16 and then 9. That's the ratio. You can adjust these settings if you want to, for example, make an A4 sized report or something else. You can click on the white space and do the format things here. If you go to the format area from the pane here, you can set up the page size. So it is typically set to 16 by 9. You can also set it to letter or custom and then type your own dimensions for the page. As such, Power BI reports do not have any fixed size. So what this means is when you create the report, this is how big it looks. But if I publish this and somebody is viewing this on an iPad, then it will automatically resize to fit that iPad. So this is called a responsive model of report. What this means is there is no fixed size for anything, and this way Power BI can resize things automatically while keeping the proportionality intact. So that's the report view. And then you have your filter pane, which can be minimized. All these panes can be minimized. Filter pane is a special type of pane that you can use to control what goes into here. We will play with this later. And then you have your visualizations area where all the visualizations are listed. And then for whatever visual that you have, you will have fields and format settings that can be applied. Okay, enough of the overview. We will go and start building, and then you can come back and understand these in more detail. So let's just say I want to understand how many people we have by department. We got some employee data. So I want to look at number of people by department. And this is where, for example, a column chart or a stacked column chart is a good example. So we will add that. As you click, it will add a chart. And then for this column chart, if you see, as soon as that one is added, all these fields got changed, because for a column chart, you can have an axis, a legend, a value, and then a tooltip. So we will add these things. We will add department on axis, because one department per column. And then value would be how many people are there. So I can take the name and put it here. That would count. So this is how you set up the charts. As you select and drag, it's because name is a text, automatically Power BI will count it, and then it will say, so this is how your people are. You have your website department, which is the largest department with 31 people, and then HR is your smallest department with just 5 people. Notice something funny here, which is when you create, it's not sorting the names by alphabetical order by default. The default behavior is always based on the size of the columns or bars or whatever. Okay, so but if you want, you can change that behavior. You can click on these 3 dots, sort, and then you can say, oh, just sort by department name. I think now it is doing in the alphabetical order, but the reverse way. If you want to change that, you can just say sort ascending, and then that would reverse that. But if you don't specify anything, then this is going to be like that. There are more options here. For example, you could also look at the data and remove the chart, etc. But that's one chart. This is how that is. Let's look at the gender distribution as maybe a pie chart as well. Usually gender is comprising of maybe 2 or 3 or 4 different values. So pie charts are good type of a chart for that kind of information. But if you make a pie chart out of departments, then it might get a little busy, and without labels, you may not be tell things apart. So I can add gender, and it will. You can also click on these things, and they will get added to the chart, and I can count the names. So we could see that we have 51% male and 47% female, but there is a blank item. So this is exposing the problem with the data now. As you are exploring the data, you see, oh, I want to visualize this, but I see a problem with my data. Why do we have some people that do not have gender information available? It could be because maybe that information was never gathered, or they choose to not divulge their gender information or whatever. So in any case, from a reporting point of view, having the word blank is not really suitable. You may want to call this as other or missing or something like that. So to fix that problem, you could go to data and you can kind of really see where that problem is coming from. If I go to gender column, there are really missing values, like this person and that person do not have their gender information entered, and that's why this is coming up. If I want to change this, and if I want to put the word other there, this is not the place where we can do it, because here all the data, if I double click, I won't be able to edit. You might think this looks like a spreadsheet, I can edit it, but that's not how Power BI behaves. This is only showing you a copy of the data. If I want to change this data, the best way to do this is to change the source file. But let's say you don't have access to edit that source file, you are only reading it off a server or something, right? So in that case, what we would do is we normally go to the very first step of the journey, which is the data step. We loaded, we connected to the Excel file, and then we just loaded. Remember that screen where we clicked on load? There is another button on that screen called transform data. So we could go to that step and then make some of these changes there. So that's what we will do. We can click on the edit queries button, and this will take us to the Power Query editor screen. So this is the place where you play with the data. Within Power Query, you are able to look at all the data and see what is going on, and also tell Power BI that you want to do some extra steps on top of it. Power Query is the software that is built to deal with the data related issues. For example, without even knowing it much, because it's a completely different screen and we haven't had a proper introduction to this yet, we will be able to really look at the gender column. There are some null values. The column quality indicator here also shows that, right? If you place your mouse pointer there, it says 98% of values are valid and 2% are empty. You can either remove the empty values, that's a button there, but that probably is not the correct way to do about it, because then you will not be able to report those two people. So right click, and then what we could do is we can replace. We can say, oh, replace small letters null, which is the missing value, and then we can say other. Replace those with the word other, and then this, you could see that has completed that step. Now, as you do that, you would notice that Power Query has added a step to the list of steps that it has done. So now that we are in Power Query, it may be a good idea to really look at what's going on. So in order to get this table, Power Query, which is the data engine of Power BI, has to do 4 steps. The step number 1 is it needs to go to the Excel file that's located at that address and connect to it. Step number 2 is it needs to navigate to the table 1. This part we have done through the navigator screen, if you remember. Step 3, it has applied some sort of a data type thing to every column. So this is a number, that's a date, that's a number, that's a number. And then step 4, which is what we just did, is replacing those values. So those are the steps. You can add more steps, and each step up does something to your data and then takes it from one stage to another. So that's how it works. And the final thing is the table name is table 1. Within Power Query, you can also rename things. So because table 1 is not a very good name, I'm going to click here and then rename this as staff. And then when you're done, if you come to the home ribbon of Power Query and click on close and apply, what this does is it will push those changes back to Power BI, and now we have a staff table with the data. And you can also see that the gender here has changed, it is now other, right? So this is that. So we now got 2 visuals here, which is the number of people by department and number of people by gender. Let's take a look at what happens if I pick one of the departments. If I pick procurement, I can immediately see that this thing is kind of changing to show how many people are within procurement. So 11 people in female and 19 males in procurement. Within finance, HR, website, right? And then if I click on the male pie, I can see also that chart. So this kind of a behavior is called interactions. Every Power BI visual by default interacts with other visuals. So as I click here, that visual is responding, and to undo, all you have to do is click again and then it will restore the behavior. So this is how Power BI behaves. It is interactive by definition. So now that we have been able to explore number of people by department and number of people by gender, let's take a look at the manager by manager also. Maybe for this we have tried a few different visuals. Most of these visuals are fairly similar to what you get in Excel, but there are some exotic ones like the maps and funnels and gauges and these other things. We will do that in a minute, but this is all the employees, and I want to be able to see what is it for a specific manager. To do that, I can add a slicer and then put manager into the slicer. So each manager will be listed once, and just as you expect, if I pick Fred, all my visuals will be only filtered down to Fred's people, or Ram, or Ian, or Carla, and then I can see those employees. So that's what a slicer is. A slicer is a filter. So you could be thinking, oh Chandoo, this is good, but what is that filter pane? Like, could I not have that there? So that's what the filter pane is essentially for, because many times we want to filter by different combinations and conditions. Power BI has this filter panel where I can put all the filters that I want there, so that I can save some space on my screen for actual reporting rather than having the filters. Okay, so this is my manager slicer. We will play with the filter pane as well, but for now that's that. Okay, so we will leave this there. Probably I will move this to the corner here for now, and then we select a manager. We are seeing the overall summaries. I want to be able to see their staff, who are the people, as well as a table. So we can add a table visual. A table is essentially just what it is, which is it's just a table of data. You can add any number of columns, and all of those columns will show up. As you could see while I'm talking, and I'm also toying with Power BI so that I can expose the behavior of various things. You can put the visuals, you can size them, and you can drag them, and you can move them around. So this is a table. In this table, I want to see who are the people that report to Ram. So to do that, I can just add the name. So these are the people. I can also see how old they are, what is their current rating, and how much salary we pay them, right? So all of this information shows up. Some of the totals also show up in the table. Probably for salary it does make sense, but rating total and age total is not very appropriate. If you don't think the total thing is relevant, you can select the table, you can go to the fields, format screen, and then from here total off. Because there are heaps of properties associated with every visual, it might be difficult to remember where everything is. So that's why there is a search bar. Usually I don't even bother going to the total. I would simply search for the word total, and then I can see that drilled down, and then I can filter that. So these are the names, that's the age and rating and salary. Now, because all of this is there, we are not able to quickly spot who are the poor performers. For example, these two people have 2 ratings, and that person has a 2 rating, whereas everybody else seem to be having a rating of 5 or 4. So I want to be able to highlight those ratings that are very low. To do that, what you could do is you could go to the fields, select rating, little down arrow there, and then apply some conditional formatting on top. For example, I can apply a background color, and then lowest value is dull white and highest value is blue. Now for a thing like rating, lower rating is bad, so really that's what you want to be able to highlight. So maybe if you want to, you can flip this colors by saying lower rating goes in that color and higher rating is just white. We don't care about that. And then when you click OK, you can immediately spot those people. Okay, that's your traditional conditional formatting applied on top. Likewise, you can also apply some sort of a formatting on top of salary so that you could see who's the higher paid staff. It might get a little too busy, but you could apply, for example, a data bar, and then because money is usually green, we don't have any green colors here, so let's just go with maybe that color, and then you can size these, you can move them around just as you would expect, and you can also sort this by salary, so that's that. So once the table is set up, it would work exactly same as you expect. If I go to Cynthia, I'll get all the Cynthia staff. I'll be able to see the updated conditional formats, and I can go to Carla, I can go to Fred, I can go to Ram, I can go to Ian. And then I think we do have enough people for this full box. So this is how we can quickly set up without even knowing anything in Power BI, right? We started talking about it and we loaded some sample data and we started building, and everything works beautifully. I can select finance, I can see people that report Ian in finance and how they are. I can go to website, I can go to sales. Let's just say what happens if I select Ambrose here. This is gonna also highlight those blocks because now Ambrose is selected. It's saying he's in procurement, male, gender. While you might say, oh, this interaction is kind of useful, it's also not so friendly. I mean, it is probably not the needed interaction. The needed ones are, I can select procurement, I can see those people. I can select female, I can see those people. Or I can select male and I can see those people. But the interaction that's probably not so useful is the ability to select something like this and seeing that there. So to fix that problem, what we could also do is we can tell Power BI, hey, I want these visuals 1 and 2 to talk to everything, but I want this visual, the number 3 here, not to update the values on the others, right? So to do that, what we will do is we'll select this visual. We can go to format. As you can see, those additional ribbons will only appear when you select certain things, and then from here you can edit the interactions. So we can say edit interactions, and when you enable, this is kind of a toggle thing, it is on off. When you enable, you see some extra icons on the top of the visuals. So let's take a look at these things. I selected this and I'm looking at them, and here what this is telling is there are 3 types of interactions that can happen. You can filter a visual, you can highlight a visual, you can not have any interactions. So for this, if I select something, I don't want this or this to respond. So that means I want the interaction to be none. Currently it is highlight, so I want this to be none. Right. Once that is done, we can uncheck this, and if I click this, nothing happens to those visuals. It only highlights that particular row within the table. Whereas if I select HR, it does still respond and I can get all my answers. So now that our report is kind of ready, let's go and add some titles and things like that. I'm just gonna move it slightly so that there is enough space for our title, and then we can go to home. We can add a text box which will be our report title, and I'll move it to the top, and here I'll simply say our first Power BI report. Okay, and you can also apply any kind of fonts and formattings that you wish, just as you would expect, and once that's done, it's probably a little too big. You can also name the page. As you would expect, Power BI has a multi-page kind of a situation, so you can have many pages in your report, each page telling one part of the story. Think of this like a PowerPoint presentation where each slide tells one part of the story. So you can go and add another page. We don't need another page for now, so I'm deleting that. But I can also double click and then say this is getting started. Right. So once this is done, we will save this. I'm going to save this into my course folder here, and once it is saved, you can also publish it, assuming you've logged in. So I will go through that process so that you can see what happens next, which is if I publish, this will simply say you want to publish to your current workspace. You could have multiple workspaces. I only have one, and I'll select this. It will do its thing, and then eventually when it is finished, it will say success, open getting started in Power BI as an additional link. You don't need to open it, but I'll just open it so we can actually see this report on a web page. This would open up your browser, in my case Internet Explorer, and then just wants to show all of these things without stopping. Okay, so we have our web-based report. This is exactly like Power BI desktop application that we just used. The web application can also be used to edit these things and make changes as well, but essentially it will work just like the desktop application, which is it has interactions, and then those interactions work just like the other interactions that you have seen. Okay, so from here you can also share, right? This depends on what kind of plan and plan you are on Power BI. For example, if I go to share, it will simply say you need to upgrade to Power BI Pro, which is I don't have Power BI Pro because I'm a one-man show. I'm not creating these things for others. I'm only creating this for my own amusement and training, so I don't need that. But in a corporate environment, typically you create something and then you share it with your clients or colleagues or bosses. So that's when that process happens, and that's why you need that. You can also have additional types of sharing, which is there is an export. Oh, sorry, where is the? Yeah. So here in the 3 dots, embed publish to web as an option. What this does is it kind of creates a sharing mechanism where you're sharing the Power BI report with the wider public, so that anybody can watch it. So I'm going to do this. It'll give me some sort of information, and then when you click that, it'll give a warning saying if you publish, everybody can see your data. That's fine because this is all dummy data anyway, and I'll publish this. I'll get a link that I can then email to others. So I copied that link. I'm now going to open a different browser and then paste that link there so we could actually see this. So the difference between this screen and the other screen is this screen is just the report. There's no other bells and whistles. I can't edit this. I can't make changes to it or share or export or whatever. Here, this is just like a web page. I click, I can see the information without having to deal with any of the other bells and whistles. So this is how Power BI works. When you share this and when you open this link on your browser or on your mobile phone or tablet, everything readjusts automatically. For example, if I resize my browser, you could see that things got kind of readjusted, and then it will do its thing. Okay, so that's how Power BI really works. As I said, this is really just getting started lesson, so we haven't really built anything that is complicated or comprehensive, but that's the start. In the next lesson, we will actually define some goals for our reporting. We will say this is the kind of themes that we want to explore, and then we will go and build that report through Power BI. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye-bye.